Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
For the last 30 minutes, he had been quietly watching his beautiful wife as she gracefully moved around the ballroom. Her goal was to distance herself as much as possible from him by the time the clock struck midnight. She found herself in the company of affluent and self-assured individuals, becoming the center of attention, much like a delicately prepared dish at a feast. Executives from his office, especially his insufferable boss who was born into wealth, would shower her with kisses and caresses. He was no stranger to this spectacle, as his company's New Year's Eve parties had followed the same script for the past couple of years. During the first year, he had endured it, attributing it to the influence of excessive champagne. However, the harsh reality dawned on him the following year, prompting him to devise a plan to confront the situation. Feeling a pull on his jacket, he turned to find Deirdre, Josephine's best friend and partner in crime. "Happy New Year, Mike," she cheerfully greeted, reaching up to give him a somewhat pathetic kiss, a yearly ritual. Their lips barely brushed before he pulled away and looked into her brown eyes. Deirdre, like Josephine, was a socialite from a wealthier family and was part of the high society. He was accustomed to seeing her confident smirk, suggesting she knew something he didn't do to her elevated social status. However, this time, her face reflected pity and worry. "Mike, don't take this too hard," she advised gently. "She's just participating in the New Year's tradition of exchanging kisses. She'll return to you soon, unharmed. She'll remind you of her love for you." He gave her a skeptical look. Deirdre tried to reassure him. "She really does love you, you know. It's just that she's very extroverted, vibrant, and spontaneous, while you're more thoughtful and reserved. Sometimes, she needs to be around people who are like her. However, being with them only strengthens her love for you." "Alright, Deirdre, is that why she spent the entire Christmas party mingling with her colleagues under the mistletoe? We partake in her holiday Christmas event where she devotes the night to dancing and showing warmth towards her peers. Then, at my firm's New Year's Eve celebration, she dedicates the entire evening to dancing and sharing kisses, albeit not with the executives of my company. By being close to everyone at the gathering except me, she's expected to somehow develop a newfound admiration for me. It's a thought-provoking concept. Let me ask, is this her annual custom of bestowing George the Simpleton with a dozen kisses, or is it her method of expressing affection for me by doing something she knows I despise?" Deirdre, to her credit, managed to appear ashamed. She couldn't face my gaze, so she diverted her eyes and attempted to proceed. "Mike, I realize that you're upset, but you need to attempt to see it from her viewpoint, don't you? Deirdre, I believe I might actually comprehend, perhaps for the first time in our 5-year marriage." I turned away from her, returned to our table, reached into a briefcase I placed there earlier, and extracted a rather large, brightly wrapped present. I turned away from her, removed the ring from my finger, and placed it in the center of the bow. This would require her to remove the ring to open the gift. Facing Deirdre, I extended the package to her. "I'm going to depart now. Please give this to your friend when she's finally able to extricate herself from the crowd around her. Let her know I wish her a happy new year and I hope she finds everything she deserves in the upcoming year." I started to leave, but Deirdre grabbed my arm. "Don't depart, Mike. I'll go get her. She's had too much champagne again. You need to take her home." "No, Deirdre, I don't have to. She has a room booked here at the hotel. She's been here all day entertaining the men while I've been working. Of course, you're aware of all this because you've been here with her. She has her own car, clothes, and everything she needs. I'm pretty sure at least one of the guys she's spending time with right now will be more than willing to accommodate her, or maybe all of them will. Don't give me that look. You fed me the same line last year when I gave her another chance. She's made her decision, and so have I. Farewell, Deirdre. I must admit, it'll be a relief for me to never have to see you again." Walking out of the ballroom, I acknowledged Helen, the HR director. I had spent the first half of the day with her while my boss and his buddies were busy setting things up at the hotel. To be honest, he was actually in a fancy suite, which he paid for using the company credit card. Sleeping with my wife, that is. I should correct myself, though. They were actually sleeping in the luxury suite. My wife and I have evidence in the form of photos and videos to prove it. Helen also has some of this evidence, and the chairman of the board will be informed about it very soon. After leaving the ballroom, Helen and her husband moved toward the group of men surrounding Josephine. Deirdre was also navigating her way through this group of men, some of whom persisted in attempting to kiss her as part of the tradition. A few men tried to flirt with Helen, but her husband's disapproving expression, a former American soccer forward, seemed to discourage them. Helen made her way through the crowd until she reached CEO George Burke and his companion, who were just ahead of Deirdre. A short distance from the group, she halted alongside her spouse, taking note of Deirdre's confused look. The abrupt call of Deirdre's name drew Joe's focus, prompting her to disengage from George's hold. Seeing her friend's astonished expression, Deirdre's brow furrowed. Conversely, Helen wore a smile. Deirdre extended a gift, beautifully packaged, towards Joe, who accepted it. She seemed to ask Deirdre to repeat her earlier statement as she leaned in closer. "Mike has left this for you." "He's not here anymore, Joe," Deirdre informed her friend. "He observed you flirting and getting intimate throughout the night. When you began to get close with all those men, he handed me this package and departed." Joe chuckled. "Oh, that's just Mike. He tends to overreact when I don't give him my attention for a bit. I'll head home, apologize, make up to him, and everything will return to normal. He adores me. Even when he's upset, he leaves me a gift. Let's see what it is." Deirdre attempted to interject, "Joe, I don't believe it's a gift," but Joe was already engrossed in unwrapping the package. As the ring tumbled out and hit the floor, a silence ensued. Joe, looking perplexed, inquired, "What's this?" George, who had been observing, stooped down, picked up the ring, and held it out to her with a smirk. "Isn't this your husband's wedding band?" Joe paused in her unwrapping, looked at him in bewilderment, and accepted the ring. She glanced at Deirdre, who quietly said, "I tried to warn you." Unfazed, Joe resumed unwrapping the gift, revealing a white box inside. Feeling a sense of relief, she smiled, gave the box a light shake, commented on its weight, and started to remove the tape from each side with her fingernail. As the adhesive on the third side was removed, the box's contents tumbled out, scattering on the floor. She stooped to collect the shiny papers that had dropped, and others also bent down to assist in retrieving the ones that had skidded away. Suddenly, everyone froze in their tracks. Joe's eyes bulged, and she exclaimed in shock, "No." Her outcry drew the attention of those in proximity, and a larger crowd began to form around them. Deirdre's eyes mirrored Joe's shock. She glanced upwards, catching sight of the terrified look on George's face. He retrieved a large, glossy, colored photograph, measuring 20 by 30 centimeters, from the ground. He held it against his pricey suit and blurted out, "What the heck, Joe?" His voice was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The attention of everyone present shifted abruptly to the scattered photographs, each depicting Joe engaged in intimate activities with individuals other than her spouse. The images captured moments with George, as well as encounters with fellow executives from the company where both Mike and Joe were employed, including colleagues and higher-ups. Although not exhaustive, the selected images carefully curated by Mike displayed Josephine in a variety of explicit scenarios involving both men and women. Faced with these candid depictions of her escapades, Joe succumbed to a sudden loss of consciousness, collapsing backward. Luckily, George's timely intervention prevented her head from hitting the unforgiving floor, thus averting potential harm. Deirdre swiftly moved to Joe's side, gently lifting her head, administering a light slap to rouse her, and urgently calling out her name, seeking to elicit a response. As the two women lay sprawled on the floor, the rest of the group busied themselves by gathering up the scattered photographs and inspecting them closely. Suddenly, one woman turned sharply towards her husband and delivered a powerful blow, accusing him of infidelity as he gazed at one of the images. "You're deceitful," she spat out, her voice filled with righteous anger. "No wonder you lack the vigor to satisfy me." Her husband, taken aback by the accusation, could only stare at her in disbelief before she swung her purse at him, connecting with his right eye. He winced in pain and collapsed to the ground, where she delivered another painful blow to his groin with her pointed shoe. Undeterred, the woman knelt down among the strewn pictures, methodically examining each one. Pausing briefly, she addressed the other women in the room, suggesting that those married to the executives at Taylor & Son might find the contents of the photos particularly enlightening. "There's more than just your spouses captured here," she announced with a wry smile. "If you're considering your options, perhaps we could arrange a discounted rate for legal counsel." 9 other women joined her on the floor, poring over the photographs with intense scrutiny, causing the men present to retreat. Amidst the chaos, someone pointed out the presence of flash drives, sparking further curiosity about their contents. In the midst of it all, a woman directed her fury towards a well-dressed older man, accusing him vehemently of betrayal and financial ruin, brandishing 2 additional incriminating pictures as evidence of his infidelity. The blonde woman rose from her position on the floor, her expression contorted with rage as she confronted him, brandishing the incriminating photographs and hurling a barrage of curses his way. Startled, he recoiled and quickly made his escape. Meanwhile, the other woman wept inconsolably, clutching a photograph to her chest, while her husband, unable to bear the sight, buried his face in his hands, tears streaming down his cheeks. In a moment of confrontation, the man thrust a photograph towards the attractive woman before him, his voice booming with accusation. "So, you're bisexual?" he exclaimed incredulously. "What's the meaning of this? You assured me there would never be a third party involved." Blushing furiously, she turned on her heels and hurried away, her towering footwear adding to her haste. Elsewhere in the room, another woman selected several photographs from the scattered pile and began calling out names as she made her way towards the center of the ballroom. Perplexed, a bystander halted her, inspecting one of the images closely before turning to her husband with a glare of fury. He, sensing trouble, attempted to retreat, but she advanced towards him, brandishing the photograph as evidence of his betrayal. This scene repeated itself several times, each confrontation escalating in intensity as friends of the accused were also drawn into the fray, caught off guard by the unfolding drama. Amidst the chaos, Jo, who had been observing the spectacle with bewildered eyes, found herself approached by a man in a dapper tuxedo, his concern evident in his inquiry. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, extending a helping hand. She regarded him with a mix of curiosity and gratitude before nodding in acknowledgement. "Who are you?" he inquired further, offering his assistance. With a somber tone, she replied, "I'm Josephine Lord, but I doubt anyone can offer assistance now." The man, taken aback, questioned, "Josephine Reynolds Lord?" In affirmation, she nodded, prompting him to introduce himself. He handed her a bundle of documents he'd been carrying, snapped a photo with his phone, and proclaimed loudly, "I'm the bailiff, and you've been served." Addressing the assembled crowd, he announced the purpose of the documents, linking them to the divorce petition filed by Michael Morris Lord, citing evidence of infidelity captured in accompanying photos and videos. He informed the audience that copies of the divorce papers, including incriminating evidence, were available as public records online. Additionally, for a fee, he offered access to a comprehensive website detailing Josephine's activities over the past year, facilitating verification of spousal infidelity. He further emphasized the opportunity for individuals to verify their spouse's involvement with Josephine or other parties, offering assistance through a designated website. For an extra fee, he promised digital copies of the evidence, deemed crucial for legal proceedings. He concluded by urging the audience to respond promptly to this revelation. He made a deep bow and departed, leaving behind a wake of tears, fear, and panic. Although he might face repercussions for his actions in the future, the generous compensation he received, coupled with the influence of his esteemed family in New Jersey and New York, provided him a sense of security. Meanwhile, Jo sat with the divorce papers resting in her lap, cradled by her friend's supportive embrace. Her expression mirrored her internal turmoil as she surveyed the faces around her, observing a spectrum of emotions ranging from hatred to pity to anger and unease. The familiar blend of admiration, desire, and jealousy that had characterized her privileged existence was notably absent. The weight of her loss and shame crashed over her, and she clung tightly to Deirdre, seeking solace as she wept uncontrollably. George Taylor issued directives to his subordinates, instructing them to gather and destroy the incriminating photographs. He then turned his gaze towards Helen, issuing a stern command. "I want a reprimand letter from Mike Lord on my desk by Monday, along with termination papers underneath." Helen, maintaining a neutral demeanor, delivered unexpected news. "I regret to inform you, Mr. Taylor, that Mr. Lord resigned this afternoon. He provided 2 weeks' notice, utilized his approved vacation time, packed his belongings, and left the premises. Mr. Taylor's resolve remains steadfast. I refuse to accept his resignation. He will be terminated after receiving a reprimand. I'll ensure he never finds employment in this industry again." However, Helen persisted in her revelations. "I must apologize once more, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Lord spoke with the chairman of the board before his departure, and your father accepted his resignation. Mr. Lord has already secured a new position with a firm he previously consulted for, with your written approval, sir." Taylor's complexion took on a worrying shade of crimson, leading bystanders to fear for his health as he unleashed a tirade of profanity aimed at both his father and Mike Lord. Despite the spectacle, Helen and her husband found amusement in the situation, discreetly enjoying the embarrassment unfolding before them. Meanwhile, Mike Lord embarked on a journey from New York in his newly acquired four-wheel drive Chevy High Country Suburban, equipped with a powerful turbo diesel engine he had specifically requested. Having meticulously planned his route, Mike anticipated a leisurely journey, veering off the main highways to explore the cultural richness of rural states. Inspired by iconic songs, he sought out scenic country roads and quaint towns, eager to immerse himself in local culture and indulge in homemade jams sold at roadside stores. Mike's decision to purchase the SUV marked a significant shift in his financial dynamics with his wife, who had substantially higher earnings throughout their marriage. Despite this, Mike proposed a fair division of assets, offering to retain his investments and retirement funds while relinquishing claims on her penthouse and trust fund in exchange for a swift resolution to their divorce. As he embarked on his journey, the radio played classic country tunes, a stark reminder of the life he was leaving behind. For Joe, this departure signaled a newfound independence and a departure from the narrative his wife had crafted around him in recent years. With the turn of the year, Mike resolved to take charge of his destiny, confident in his ability to thrive independently. While he harbored no ill will towards Taylor and Son, he foresaw the company's decline under George's leadership, attributing its past success largely to his own contributions. With plans to establish his own venture, Mike envisioned surpassing his former employer, exposing George's shortcomings in due time. The prospect of vindication brought him a sense of satisfaction, akin to the swift elimination of an annoying pest. Reflecting on his actions brought a smirk to his lips. He anticipated being a silent observer when Josephine's parents learned of his scheme at the ball. Helen had already phoned him with the gratifying news. The way she had scattered the photos across the ballroom surpassed his expectations. He had engineered the box to fall apart precisely when opened, adding to the chaos. Her parents, who had always looked down on him, would be mortified. They believed he wasn't worthy, particularly due to his lack of an Ivy League education. However, his qualifications from the Colorado School of Mines and the University of Michigan spoke volumes in his industry. With a grin, he contemplated the disruption he caused and the triumphs he would achieve. Meanwhile, Deirdre and her husband, Albert, promptly escorted Josephine home. Upon entering, Joe was overcome with tears once more. During the journey, she rehearsed what she would say to Mike, attempting to justify her infidelities as inconsequential diversions aimed at enhancing their marriage. He understood the implausibility of her excuses but clung to them nonetheless. Arriving home to find Mike's belongings gone, Joe confronted the harsh reality of her actions and the consequences thereof. She crumbled to the floor, overwhelmed by self-reproach and regret. For years, she had deceived herself into believing she could manipulate her husband's forgiveness. However, Mike's decisive actions shattered that illusion, along with their marriage and her reputation. Meanwhile, Mike spent the week methodically executing his plan. He ensured uninterrupted communication by copying his SIM card before discarding the old one. As he journeyed towards his new home in Texas, he disseminated personalized emails, each containing damning evidence that dismantled marriages with surgical precision. The prospect of this chaos brought a smirk to his face. Just the day before, he had dispatched a damning video to Deirdre's husband, Al. Mike relished the thought of Al's reaction, knowing full well the role Deirdre played in Joe's downfall. Back in New York, Deirdre and Joe sat in their now empty apartment, the fallout of their actions spreading like wildfire. Albert, finding vindication in the turmoil he helped unleash, watched with satisfaction as the consequences unfolded. George found himself in a dire situation as well. His father had terminated him and severed his access to the family inheritance. Not stopping there, his father ousted all the top executives responsible for tarnishing the company's reputation. Now serving as CEO himself, his father appointed Helen as the new vice president of talent development and attraction, tasked with recruiting skilled executives globally. As Mike drove past, he bypassed the Martin Luther King Boulevard exit and prepared to turn onto Cesar Chavez Street. His journey took him by the Austin Convention Center and Lady Bird Lake, with Congress Avenue in sight. Parking at his new company-provided high-rise apartment on the 70th floor, Mike admired the panoramic view of the city. With 6 months' rent paid in advance, he had time to search for his ideal home with ample greenery, envisioning a future with a dog and a life partner. Meanwhile, the ongoing drama unfolded in New York City as exposed spouses implicated others and abusive partners shared damning revelations. Helen kept Mike abreast of the chaos, which only fueled his satisfaction. Each update reinforced his conviction about his decision to relocate to Texas, echoing the phrase, "Gone to Texas," with a sense of finality. Second story. Reflecting on his marriage, he acknowledged his wife's staunch support of feminism and prioritization of independence, which shaped their relationship into more of a cohabitation between independent individuals rather than a traditional marriage. With her demanding career in software development, she often prioritized work over domestic duties, leaving him to handle household responsibilities. Despite their differing roles, they cherished their time together on weekends, as she maintained her distance from traditional homemaking roles embraced by married relatives and friends. As a 35-year-old accountant married to a driven software developer for 2 years, their dynamic lifestyle reflected modern ideals of independence and career focus over traditional domestic roles. With her commitment to her career, she viewed household tasks as a test of her pride, leaving him to manage most domestic responsibilities. Their limited time together during the week highlighted the contrast between their lifestyles, as she prioritized her career and personal projects over traditional family roles. During social gatherings, I've noticed a tendency in her to make disparaging remarks about housewives, labeling them as servants in private conversations. Despite my efforts to engage in open dialogue and discourage such comments, she remained resolute in her belief, viewing a career as an essential marker of success. Her pride in her job occasionally veered into arrogance, which could be frustrating, but I must acknowledge her consistent kindness and affection towards me. Expressing her love through gifts and tender messages, she ensured our romantic life was fulfilling, taking the lead to ensure my happiness in the bedroom. Recently, when her cousin, a successful dentist, visited, my wife's expectations were challenged. Accustomed to being the high achiever in the family, she found herself feeling envious and sought to compete by taking on extra work on weekends, limiting our time together. Her colleague, Rob, often joined us at home, working on coding projects with her. Despite the significant age gap between us and Rob, his presence never posed a threat. In fact, we often bonded over games and shared meals he cooked, benefiting from his youthful energy and dedication to their joint projects. Rob's lifestyle, characterized by frequent dating and exploration of relationships, provided us with opportunities to offer advice based on our own experiences. As their collaboration intensified, my wife ultimately chose to leave her full-time job to focus entirely on their shared project, a decision that reshaped our priorities and routines. They poured their hearts into their work, striving relentlessly to bring their ambitious project to fruition. While I, valuing hard work, wholeheartedly supported my wife and Rob in their endeavors. My wife, with her stringent work ethic, didn't hesitate to express her dissatisfaction if Rob appeared lax, stressing the project's importance and her zero tolerance for errors or shortcuts. In efforts to maintain peace and smooth collaboration, especially in social settings, I often found myself mediating their disagreements, siding with Rob to appease my wife's temperamental nature. Despite her dedication to her projects, her excessive pride and arrogance began alienating us from old friends and family, prompting Rob to step in, organizing outings and treating us to moments of relaxation. Our social circle dwindled, leaving us, along with Rob's rotating girlfriends, finding solace in each other's company. My wife's incessant need to compete with Rob's partners often left me frustrated, yet it was Rob who diffused our arguments and sought to mend our relationship, becoming like a younger brother to me over time. As their project neared completion, their relentless efforts took a toll. My wife's irritability soared, often venting her frustrations on Rob, who juggled his workload and her volatile mood. Witnessing this, I couldn't help but sympathize with him, navigating through the project's challenges and my wife's unpredictable temperament. One evening, attending my company's dinner alone due to my wife's work commitments, I returned home to find the room empty, suspecting a disagreement between Rob and my wife. However, what awaited me in our bedroom was beyond comprehension, Rob and my wife in a compromising position, a scene that filled me with shock, anger, and despair. Their startled reactions revealed their assumption of my prolonged absence, exploiting the opportunity until my untimely return, shattering the trust and stability of our marriage. I proceeded towards their usual workspace, fueled by a storm of intense emotions, my intentions veiled by a cloud of anger. Swiftly, before they could react, I seized their laptops and forcefully hurled them against the wall, shattering years of their hard work into irreparable pieces. Deliberately, I carried the broken devices outside, ensuring they couldn't salvage or repair them. With their USB drive still connected, they were left with no recourse to retrieve or safeguard their valuable data. Their desperate pleas to cease only intensified my rage, their tearful confessions of devastation serving as a painful reminder of their betrayal. Despite my wife's attempts to attribute their actions to exhaustion and work-related stress, my anger only swelled. Overwhelmed by shock and feelings of betrayal, I made the agonizing decision to eject both my wife and Rob from our home, their intimate connection, discovered amidst my wife's fraternal treatment of Rob, deepening my sense of hurt and betrayal. The revelation of my wife's actions caused her immense distress, tarnishing her image among peers and plunging her into a state of depression. Her once dedicated project lay in ruins, her partnership with Rob terminated. Struggling with an unstable mental state, her workload diminished, and she found solace in medication. In facing divorce papers, she grappled with the harsh reality, her struggles with failure exacerbating her turmoil. For me, the decision to divorce brought a sense of solace, allowing me to regain the support of old friends and engage in activities that rejuvenated my spirit. No longer bound by a competitive mindset fostered by my wife, I no longer felt compelled to pursue wealth for the sake of outshining others. With newfound clarity, I embraced a path free from the burdens of pride and competition.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell icon for notifications of new stories.